Look, there was way too much debate about bathroom access and not enough debate about classroom excellence. I have no problem. Child wants to have a discussion about their pronoun, but I, as a mayor or something else, I want to focus on the 34 kids that don't know what a pronoun is.
Forged in America. Forged in America.
Welcome to episode 13 of Forged in America. I'm Ravin Gandhi with my buddy Al Goldstein. We are both entrepreneurs who have built and sold some businesses. Today, as a guest, we have the man who we believe can save the Democratic Party. Rahm Emanuel has been a congressman. He has been the White House chief of staff. He has been the two-term amazing mayor of the city of Chicago. He's been the ambassador to Japan. And welcome to Forge in America, Rahm Emanuel.
Hey, thank you, man.
Well, Rahm, I'm super excited. We're hanging out here. I feel like the last couple times we've seen each other, it's always at our mutual friends' 50th birthday parties or bar mitzvahs, as they seem to me, or in an elevator where I threatened to come to Japan and you told me not to come.
Yeah, both are true.
Both are true. So amazing to have you on. We're super excited as we continue to build this audience. And just so you know, the way we got to creating a podcast as a midlife crisis project is we're really excited about.
We're all here for you.
Capitalism. We called it Forged in America. Obviously, I'm an immigrant. Ravin is a son of immigrants. This idea of being pro-free enterprise, of really the American dream being alive and well, is something that drove us here. So,
which is why you're running for Senate, right? That speech. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. While we have the man on the screen, the first thing that I want to talk about, Rahm, is education, because that is how I met you through the work that I've done at City Year in low-income schools. I know you are super passionate about it. I just saw you a few weeks ago at Morgan Park High School. The point is, half of American kids cannot read at grade level, cannot do math at grade level. And you have been a great voice on this. The thing that I would love to hear from you on is this miracle that's happening in Mississippi, because they have introduced accountability, and Mississippi has gone from like the bottom of the pack to the top. And the real question is, some of the forces on the left have felt like, math is racist or testing is bad. I know you don't agree with that. So how do we bring accountability back?
Yeah, well, I think actually both parties are actually at fault. One, abandoning public schools and public education. And two, abandoning accountability. And our kids fall through the cracks of those two abandonments. So to say, it's a party that's on accountability. Now, if you go to Mississippi, which I have done, first they don't call it the miracle, they call it the marathon. It went from 49th to 9th in reading scores. States that replicated their science or reading, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Alabama, have also similarly seen rising in reading scores. They will tell you it's the entire package, so you will focus out of some desire on accountability. Their package is what matters, and they've done it for 20 years. First, reorient the entire curriculum around phonics, the science of reading. Focus and re-educate the teachers on how to do the science of reading. Support the teachers with these coaches and the schools and the principals with these coaches. Two, I think it was they dedicate to every child a minimum of an hour and 15 minutes every day, sometimes more, to reading. If the child starts to fall behind, get them a tutor. Now, they start in kind of kindergarten. As you know, in Chicago, we went to full day kindergarten, full day pre-K, all the better. And if a child, I think it's after 3 tests, fails, they can't get advanced to 4th grade. So it's not the penalty that matters, although the penalty is part of the tool in the toolbox. It's not the toolbox. And a lot of people, you by way of example, but you're not only, that always go, that's it. You got to just hold the kid back, right? You got to have the reading. You got to have the science. You got to support the teacher. You got to support the child. You got to put the time into it, not just per day, but going all the way back, starting in kindergarten or pre-K, and really prepare and build yourself. Now, look, Mississippi's demographics are pretty challenging. They went from 49th to 9th. No one teacher alone can beat back poverty and history and a culture and problems by themselves. So it was a rewriting of the entire system around the science of reading and the phonics. If you know a little, like I am, and enough to be dangerous, about 20 years ago, some stupid professor at Columbia University started this whole different, well, we shouldn't be doing the science reading. You know, if a child doesn't like the letter A, they don't have to use the letter A. If you like the picture, talk about the picture. And that's how they were going to do reading.
Well, it's sort of
And,
like get
and
everybody
so,
a participation trophy, right?
yeah, so
That's it.
Mississippi got back to the basics. The more important thing to me is there's been a lot of debate of it. That's what this is about. But what convinced me, and what convinced me, not only seeing it firsthand in Hattiesburg, as I said, the answer to our reading challenge is in Hattiesburg, not in Harvard. But the fact that Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama all replicated this and all saw gains. So what's ever challenging America nationwide on its reading problems and its math problems can be found in America. Now, we held a town hall in Water Valley, Mississippi, county that Donald Trump won by 21%. And they had a standing room only for the town hall we did. And then I drove down to Hattiesburg to see a class school that went from 9th in the city out of 9 to number 1, and the mayor sending its kids to the school. And the principal is a tough as nuts, welcoming environment, high attendance rate, and they've done a phenomenal job.
So I guess building on that, at the same time in Chicago with Brandon Johnson and in New York with Mamdani and so on, you're hearing talk about going to places like Stuyvesant, the selective enrollment schools, and Walter Payton, and math is bad and evil and it's racist. And how do you correlate those two, and what is the right path there?
Well, one is you just point out 2 high schools. So I have kind of 2 pillars and they're in different phases. One, reorient pre-K to 8th grade around the fundamentals in math and reading. Dedicate the time, retrain the teachers, focus on the fundamentals, etc. One side note on that, Mississippi found through their data that while the kids were doing great on up to 3rd grade reading, they're starting to lose momentum in 4th and 5th grade. So they're now looking at curriculum centers, reading centers, as a way to keep that momentum going. So they're very honest with themselves where they're doing well and where they need to do better. There's some signs. Alabama's got an answer to the 4th grade math challenges. So the elementary years get to the fundamentals. On the high school years, I think what we did in Chicago is the best example of how to redirect it from being a diploma machine to being a college to career focus, away from just trying to get graduation and diploma, although that's a good thing, having driven our graduation rate from the mid 50s to the low 80%. And we got from almost no track to 67% of our kids going to college and community college. Now, here are the 3 things. First and foremost, nobody got a high school diploma without showing us a letter of acceptance from a college, a community college, a branch of the armed forces, or a trade school. Everybody who walked on graduation day were telling us where they're walking to. We got a 98% compliance. Second, 50% of our kids were graduating, or just shy of that, with college credit already under their belt through dual credit, dual enrollment, advanced placement tests, and international baccalaureate. And then third, for those kids who did achieve a B average, we offered them the economic opportunity of free community college for 3 years to finish their associate degree. And those programs fit together as a puzzle, fundamentally reformed the high school years that haven't been reformed in 100 years, and directed them not to just worry about the diploma, but worry about what comes after the diploma, which is what the economy and that child needs. Now, in about 2 weeks from now, I'll be going to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'll be laying out a plan on vocational education and how to grow the trades in America.
Well,
And
that
really,
makes a ton of sense to me.
Ram, I watched you, I think a couple weeks ago on the pod Save America with Tommy,
uh-huh.
and where when you guys were talking about this, there was a moment where you said, look, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And I think at that point where you had made your point about Democrats got caught in the bathroom instead of being focused on the classroom. And I love the fact that you said, we're going to have to agree to disagree, because I feel like that might be the fault line between where guys like
All right,
myself and Al
time
are
out.
with you.
So I did say that, and I said, look, there was way too much debate about bathroom access and not enough debate about classroom excellence. I have no problem. Child wants to have a discussion about their pronoun, but I, as a mayor or something else, I want to focus on the 34 kids that don't know what a pronoun is.
Exactly.
Now, no, but here's the thing: we disagree, but now we have a data point that we didn't have then. The gentleman that just won the special election in Texas for the state house says in the New York Times the whole cultural issues and cultural wars in schools was wrong. He focused on education and he focused on vocational ed. So to me, as I said to Tommy's a good friend, we're going to respectfully disagree. We just had an election in Fort Worth, Texas, not exactly a home game. Flipped a district that went plus 17 for Trump, and the Democrat won handedly. You're right. We're going to respectfully disagree. He says, I focused on education, on the opportunities education provides. He works at Lockheed as a sheet metal worker, served in the armed forces, and I stayed away from the cultural wars. This isn't hard. Only Democrats try to make it hard.
Look, you are preaching to the choir. I mean,
I know I am, but I said
that.
that to Tommy over a month ago on Pod Save America. We're going to respectfully disagree. But as an electoral perspective, we have a test case in Fort Worth, Texas. Goes in the Rahm column, win. As I like to say, I'm the only person talking nationally about education. I don't know where anybody else is, but that's what I'm going to do. 50% of our kids can't do reading at math grade level, and it's all chirps from everybody else.
So
Second, we have an electoral, because you can have the greatest ideas, but if you can't win, it don't mean squat. And he wins in Fort Worth, Texas. Again, not a home game; it's an away game.
Why do you think that is? Why?
But here's what's interesting to me. It's a fascinating what's wrong with the party. The Republicans walk away and go, "Oh my God, this is a precursor of November." Democrats say, "Look at his profile." Now, I've spent a good part of my life recruiting people out of the national security profile. He comes out of the Air Force. Not wrong to look at that, but they ignore his message. Not everybody can be a machinist at Lockheed and or a veteran out of the armed forces. But his message was, which nobody wanted to talk about, I mean, I mentioned it today on CNN, was stay away from the cultural wars and focus on education.
So that's a good point. I guess maybe for me,
It was interesting to me that nobody took the message lesson, but only wanted to do a verb. Look at his background. Look at his back. It's valuable as somebody who's recruited candidates, but it doesn't tell you the whole story.
Well, it's renewal versus resistance. The Journal wrote about you the other day, and they said Rahm Emanuel wants to renew, and everyone else wants to resist.
Look, there's politics to resistance.
So maybe this is
my thing. I've just finished this one thought. I'll be quick.
Yeah.
This election, I get the resistance politics. But 2028 is going to be an election about the future, and you better have some ideas about the future if you want people to give you the keys to the car. That's where I'm going to spend my time.
So I think that's a good lead in to at least where I want to go. And I think, in when we first met, when you were running for mayor, we were building Pangea properties in Chicago. We ultimately ended up buying 10,000 apartments in the city and outside of the city and revitalizing a lot of those, supporting a lot of your policies, quite honestly, building these control centers to help policing. And quite honestly, I got disheartened. And so at some point in COVID, I decided we wanted to be out of Chicago. We sold that portfolio and I moved to Florida along with a lot of other people. And so if you look at kind of the numbers in the 2030 projected census, and you look at just where the wealth has transferred to, it's Florida and it's Texas. And I can't walk down the street here without bumping into somebody that used to be my neighbor in Chicago, and now Larry Page is my neighbor in Miami. So what's going on? And what does that say about the red states versus the blue states?
Well, first, I'm going to reject this. I know when Bill Clinton went to Oklahoma after the bombing, I went and did a Google search. Nobody said he was going to a red city in a red state. When George Bush showed up in New York after 9/11, nobody said he went to a city that he lost. And remember, his election was under doused. I think we all have to break this concept that's being perpetuated that, oh, people are fleeing blue and going red. Now, there are advantages that Florida has or Texas has. I think we have, you know this, advantages in Chicago. As I said when I first got a mayor, you got to double down on your strengths and turn your weaknesses and vulnerabilities into assets, not liabilities. I still think a city with a great cultural attraction, the diversity of population, unbelievable universities within a 200-mile radius of the city, affordable housing on a comparative basis, has a great and is in the middle of the country with an incredible transportation system and incredible waterfront. That has great advantages. I don't think anything, Texas will do what Texas does. Florida will do what Florida does. My problem is we walked away and from what I think was, a winning strategy. We 7 years in a row we're the number one city for corporate relocations. That same city exists. What two? We're 7 years in a row number one city for direct foreign investment. That city still exists. 3, we reversed a 4-decade decline in population and grew by just shy of 100,000. That city still exists. You have to assemble your strengths, organize them into a winning game plan, and then execute. And when you do have a challenge or you have a problem, you got to address it head on or turn it into an asset. Now, people, you two included, used to joke at me when I used to run around and say, we got 67 cranes in the air building new buildings. It was a measurement, a progress. People were investing in the city because they saw growth. Today, you only have 2.
No, I think, by the way,
So to me,
you were
it's
you were
not the
phenomenal at
advantage.
this. Yeah.
Every place, look, every place has a game plan. I'm trying to swear off blue versus red because I think it's a mindset that gets the country to where it is today, and that's very dangerous.
Okay, I want to go right with that. If we're gonna try to, at least for today, swear off blue and red, here's an issue I would love to hear from you on, because this is an issue that has 84% approval rating
Mhm.
across the board. It doesn't matter if you are Black, if you are Hispanic, if you are white, it's 70, 80% approval, 95% Republican, 71% Democrat. You already know what I'm talking about.
See,
No,
Ravin is
I'm
courageous.
laughing only because you went from 87 to 78. That was a big drop in only a second. But
All
go
right.
ahead.
Well, the issue is voter ID. And yesterday, Chuck Schumer said voter ID is Jim Crow 2.0. And
Uh,
if you look at every poll, it drives me nuts. It is so everybody, it doesn't matter who you are. It is 70, 80, 90%. So if we're going to get rid of red and blue, give me the wisdom here. Why would Democrats not embrace this? And I
well,
just
you're
don't
asking me on a day. Look, I understand one thing about what Leader Schumer said. From this perspective, you just had the president of the United States say we want to politicize the national oversight, take over the election apparatus that's clearly in control of the states as the Constitution. You remember that document? It's called the Constitution of the United States. Very clear about who controls the election apparatus. So I can understand the flinch by Chuck Schumer that says, "Wait a second," because you have a president. Look, you can smile or snicker. He was on the phone the other day with the FBI agents in Fulton County, Georgia. You telling me housing prices, healthcare prices, electricity prices? I know Oval Office. You don't. You've never even looked at it as a tourist. I've lived there. You have enough
We actually
time to
were
go.
there
yeah,
as
we
tourists.
actually did go there as a tour.
We did get the White House
Okay,
tour.
yeah. Well, they should have kicked you out. My view.
Almost
You have
did.
enough time to get on the phone on a speakerphone when the head of the DNI is taking FBI agents through Fulton County. You have nothing else to do in your schedule. You're kidding me? You're about to get ready for the negotiations with Iran. You're about to deal with the fact that electricity prices are up 17%. And you're telling me you're worried about the Chuck Schumer saying, I want to
I
talk
don't
about.
care about Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
What I
Okay.
care about is you need a license to vote, to buy liquor, to get on a
Okay.
plane, to have a
And
job,
I can
and not to
understand.
vote.
And I can understand as somebody that I get the empathy towards that. My eyebrow raises when the president of the United States wants to break the Constitution. And what he says is, only in 15 areas do I want to do this.
Yeah,
Kind
forget
no, no,
Trump
right.
Jr.
This
Forget
is what
Trump
I love
Jr.
about you.
I just want
Well,
you
well,
are a
Robin,
political
this is
sage.
what I love about you. This is what I love about
well,
you.
here,
You have a selective reading. I just want you to answer to me. Do you think the federal government should take over the elections in only 15 areas?
Of
well,
course
Ram,
not. Of course
Okay,
not.
well then I can understand why people would resist right now making any changes when you got a basically the operation that has politicized every element of the criminal justice system that's supposed to be independent. I'm
well,
not, I'm sorry.
well, Ram, maybe
Even
I can.
paranoid people have enemies.
Well, Ron, maybe I can build on this, and just because I remember you telling us when Elon with Tesla was struggling, and you were there when Tesla got that original loan guarantee, and obviously Tesla has become this amazing machine, and Elon has continued to build. He's made this point many times that the reason that illegal immigration became so rampant, it was to increase the census numbers in democratic states, and obviously drive votes that way. What is your view on that front, and is that real?
That's Democrats could never be that bad to have a theory of the case. Illegal immigration has been going on since the day Ronald Reagan signed the last immigration bill under Simpson Mazzoli, late 80s, in his second term. Every president since then has tried through bubblegum, rubber bands, and some super glue to figure out how to address a country that's different than it was in 1987. Bill Clinton tried to do it. I was put together Operation Gatekeeper on San Diego border, Operation Safeguard down in Nogales, Arizona. We had programs down in El Paso, how to figure out how to secure the border so there's no illegal, then create the E-Verify system at the workplace. Everybody's trying to figure this out. It was not a methodical plan. Some people focused more on the borders, others did not. We have to basically have comprehensive reform. That's my approach. I dealt with Elon Musk as chief of staff on his SpaceX, and I dealt with him as mayor about when we were trying to figure out the tunnel to the airport downtown. So my attitude is, and that whole approach was about growth. And we're lucky now that we have a space program alternative to NASA and some competition. We'll have some other private entities, but it was the first time under President Obama where NASA then decided to have private sector compete. And I think we're better off having that alternative model. That said, it was not a strategy to increase, quote unquote, as you said, and I'm trying to avoid this, blue city and blue state populations. It was a permissiveness allowing and permitting breaking the law. And that is what ended up turning people against the immigration policy and against what President Biden was doing.
When
And
you
it was a
were
mistake.
okay, and so you were on NPR, I think just a few days ago, and you said, if I run for president, it would be to restore the American dream. And so, as part of a platform like that, given that you're acknowledging the grievous error of keeping that border open, and probably one of the big reasons Trump got elected in 24, would part of that Emmanuel platform be the border stays as is, locked down, period, and then let's focus on what happens domestically?
Look, yes, the short answer is yes, but it's not that. Use that opportunity to create since we are both, and all three of us here, nation of immigrants and a nation of laws. And redesign. The country needs it. We're at a breaking place. To rewrite the immigration policies that serve the country, both its history and its laws and its future, appropriately. And we're not doing it today. The border is one component. The workplace is another. What you do on permitting legal immigration so we have the best and the brightest to come to America is also important. So stopping illegal is only one portion of a comprehensive rewrite, which is what, if you look at it, both Ronald Reagan does in the late 80s and Lyndon Johnson does in his second term. which is the 2 times that you've had kind of comprehensive immigration reform. The country is due a good scrubbing and modernizing of its immigration laws. I think, and you can see this, the country was not happy with the disorder of the border, and the country's not happy with the disorder of Donald Trump creating in the cities. They're ready. It's a tough issue. Be consistent with what works and brings people together. A nation of laws, you break them, that it's illegal, and a nation of immigrants, which is the story of the three of us on this podcast.
In a perfect spirit of bipartisanship, like I'm completely agreeing with what you're saying, which is
But listen, it's a very, very not just a legal issue; it's an emotional issue. And so,
okay.
I don't think you appreciate the politics around emotion.
Well, no, what I hear about in downtown Chicago, the word ICE, dinner parties break up. People lose their mind with what's going on in Minnesota. If it were me, do I like masks? I hate them. Do I like lack of body cams? I think it's insane. Okay. It does seem
Look, ICE has
un-American.
become a lawless mob rather than a law enforcement
And,
entity.
and,
I
and I
thought
know
we were.
you've been saying that, but I just want,
I believe it.
if
I've been not just saying it. I believe it.
if we're talking about this purple, non-color thing, I think one of the things that if people have
Purple is a
lost,
color.
if people have lost, like the border created this insane anger among just a certain part of the country. ICE has also this pendulum swinging too far back. So I think that in
Just
20
again, having spent some time on this in the political arena, not just at dinner conversations, people don't like disorder. They don't like it at the border, and they don't like it on the streets of America. As I like to say, what are border agents doing in Minneapolis? It only borders St. Paul, Minnesota. What are you doing? You have border agents that are meant for the border of the United States in a city that borders another American city. The whole thing has been upside down because there's not a immigration policy here. This is a political strategy.
So,
You try
Rob,
to dress it up and put lipstick and bruise. It's a political strategy. This has nothing to do with immigration, and it bat flicked on him. And
so
the
Rob,
president now has the country turning against him when he's focused on the border, focused on deporting illegal immigrants. The 1994 crime bill had resources for that. The President Obama, who was protested for being the deporter in chief, enforced on that. There's a way to do this without shooting and killing Americans.
but what do you think is the difference, Ron? Because, like you said,
What
you're
do you mean?
former.
I think I think two different presidents I work for actually had the respect of the law. Do you know what? Let me ask you a question. Do you know what the budget is for ICE today?
It's one of the biggest in the
No, okay. Let me
Yeah.
help you. It's $75 billion. What do you think we spend on Pell Grants for helping poor kids go to college?
A lot less than that.
36, half.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
and let me also say to you, just a year ago, ICE's budget was close to 10 billion. It's grown exponentially and it can't manage it. And nobody's managing it. It's out of control. It's
I
the
thought we
president's
were.
personal police operation. It's failed.
So my parents came here in 1969 to Waukegan with nothing. Okay. And I grew up on a blue collar block next to cops and firemen. They got nothing from the government and they built a life and got the American dream, as did Al's parents, as did your grandparents. I heard your great story about all the eyes on the wall watching you and your brothers. My question is, in the media today, you do see stories of immigrant populations that a shocking amount are on SNAP or on demand or taking from the government. And this is apolitical. I myself, as someone who grew up in that environment, go, this can't be true. This can't be true. This must be a lie. But then when you see it, I feel like, what is the solution when we talk about the American dream, when we talk about what this country
Yeah, but
is?
I don't understand why you, of all people, would be doing this. So I'll say one thing. Um, I think a little over a third of all patents in the United States come from recent immigrants. And close to, but not limited to, I think it's close to 50% of all new small business licenses come from immigrants. So is there immigrants that are on government assistance? No doubt. There are people that have been here for generations that are on government assistance. No doubt. But when you look at also the productivity of new businesses, new patents, and that the kind of turning the topsoil of the American dream,
But are those
recent arrivals make an outsized contribution.
well?
So it's a more complicated story than sitting there and telling me about the SNAP program, in all due
But
respect.
but look, I'll build on that. I'm an immigrant. I've started multiple companies that are
Uh-huh.
unicorn companies, north of $1 billion type companies. I think 50% of all unicorn companies in the U.S. have an immigrant as a founder.
Yeah.
But are all immigrants the same? And I think
No.
this is the political
We know the answer
football.
to that question. It's not
There's a difference between a PhD in physics coming from IIT that scored in the top 0.1% in India versus someone that's coming here where 80% of people are on welfare. Like those two things do not end up in the same place.
Al, first of all, that's why I said at the beginning, you guys skipped over it. We're a nation of immigrants and a nation of laws. And since 1987, we haven't rewritten the system. The world's different. We have to rewrite the system to reflect the economy of today and the economy of tomorrow.
What's the
And
right answer?
society.
How would you rewrite it?
Well, this is more complicated than doing one podcast with you. And if I'm going to do it, I'm not writing it with you two.
Hey, you know. So Ram, let me pivot back to the question I asked you about the population and the net worth moving to the red states from the blue states, and the numbers are crazy.
I'm not doing this. No
Well,
more red state, blue state.
Again,
Purple.
it's not that. I guess here's my question. Perfect example. So Illinois in 2005 was spending about $8,000 per capita in dollars, and again, there's a lot of transfer payments. There are a lot of federal payments that are not counted in that. In 2024, the number has doubled. So it's almost 16,000. At the same time, the state's lost over 1 million people. Florida at the same time is spending roughly 5,000 per capita, about the same as it was spending in 2005. And it's gained millions of people in population. What's the difference? There has to be a difference in the formula. And we all know the states that have the biggest pension problems, the biggest deficits. And at some point, that's going to come to a head, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a cost there. And look, there are certain advantages, if I step back, that an Illinois, a New York, you can go through the map, have historic advantages, and they've underinvested in those advantages. We have an advantage, as I said early on. I used to call it the 5 T's in Chicago: talent, training, technology, transparency, and transportation. And those were the 5 T's that really underpinned our growth. Not only did we have University of Chicago, Northwestern, UIC, University of Illinois, you had DePaul, you had Loyola, you had IIT, a lot of, and then when you did a 200-mile radius, you had the Big Ten. And on June, you know this, first week of June, flocks of talent came here. We had a modern aviation system, and blah, 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 go through the whole thing. So again, I get back to what I said before. You got to invest in your strengths and then make your vulnerabilities assets rather than liabilities. I think Illinois has a lot to offer. There's been an underinvestment and people have been riding out and living on fumes for a while. Texas is going to do what Texas does for Texas. Florida's going to do what Florida's got to do for you. You got to pick up your game and run a better game. I can speak to the results, population growth, reading, math, graduation growth, more corporate relocation than 7 years in a row. So it wasn't just a single year. It was 7 years in a row. Number 1 city for direct foreign investment. It had a growth strategy. And then that had the ability, because of that growth, to address some serious structural problems. We didn't finish them, but we started to deal with them in a way that they hadn't been ignored for decades.
Again, I was a huge Chicago Bull when you were mayor, and I really thought Chicago was going to be the next tech center.
Right.
I just think the challenges are real, and there's.
I'm not saying they're not, but
right?
look again. I want to repeat. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm still saying that Chicago, like you built your businesses here, have strengths. They've atrophied. We got to get our game up. So it's that simple.
If I want to double click on Chicago, but as a proxy for all big cities in this country, I think an issue that we could talk about that helps education, that helps crime, is keeping, if we can, two parents in a household. Like I've spent so many years in City Year or other charities where you hear these stories about the statistics that what happens when there isn't, for instance, a father. And how do we as a society, forgetting party, forgetting race, try to incent that?
Yeah, well, so look, I've talked about this, and not only talked about it, then went out and created with the University of Chicago the program BAM, Becoming a Man. That about 7,500 young men a year, every year for 5 consecutive years, had a role model the way the 3 of us had a role model. That's it. So I didn't talk about it. I didn't discuss. I actually went out and did something about it. And at the city hall, I mentored a young man. Every one of us are. I mean, for me, my father's my best friend that I lost, but also my benchmark. You know, there's this great sociology book called The Two-Parent Premium. Kids that come from 2 parents basically start on their own 50. And kids that don't, not that there aren't some heroic single mothers, they start on their own 10 or 15. Just a fact. And that you can look at every data from graduation rates, staying out of trouble, you know, whatever data points. And there's other kids that do come from 2 parents that are a mess. And people that got children that come from a single parent that excel. So it's not perfect, but the data is overwhelming. You can't force a family. Can. So there's things you can do that create role models for young men. And as you know, in 2015, in my second inaugural, contrary, some reporters hated it, columnists in the city, I dedicated the entire speech to the unseen, unheard of young men of the city. And this is a full decade ago. And it's before people were writing of boys and men and catching on to the fact that we were having a generational life problem of young boys. And I kind of pat myself on the back that I was ahead of the curve. But if you went around the city, you could see these young men were internalizing an alienation and an vacuous look in their eyes that none of us would accept from our own son. None of us.
But how much of
And
that?
so, when you say, "Oh, well, you can't force a couple together." Can't. Now, there are things about good paying jobs. There are other things about this. But as government can use like this, there was Becoming a Man. There was doubling our summer jobs program. There was after school programs that created mentors for kids. There was, my father and mother, you're going to do that, you're going to go to college, etc. But in other homes, that doesn't happen. So we created the public school system, Learn, Plan, Succeed. You're not graduating without showing us a letter of acceptance from a college, a community college, a branch of the armed forces, a vocational school. It set up that expectation that should happen. You can try to force a parent to do it. It's not going to happen. So therefore, we have to, in an appropriate way, not supplant a parent, but support a parent and set those expectations and give the support to the child so they can succeed.
So Ravin and I talk a lot about Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, and Munger has this quote that I repeat often, which is, "Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome." And how much of this lack of the 2-parent home is driven by bad incentives that have been around for 50 years? And is that not the way to try to repair
We
some
can
of it?
focus on these problems. So let me say one thing. Look, there's a couple things I think we should focus on. 3 examples or 4 of recent data. Right at the height of COVID, we're now at the lowest homicide rate the country's ever experienced, the biggest drop and the lowest. Baltimore had this low since 64. The whole country is experiencing a drop in crime. 4 years ago, everybody's hair was on fire. Now, that doesn't mean you spiked the
That's
ball. Let me just finish. Let me finish.
yeah.
Let me try to answer your first question. You don't spike the ball, but it does show with good public policy, you can start to change a social problem. Second data point, opiates deaths and fentanyl deaths are down. They're not to where you want them, but they're trending in the right way. And if you I happen to think the president's Medicaid cuts are going to reverse this trend because that's where the best treatment is and resources are. But we are making progress. 3, life expectancy, having gone down 3 years in a row, has shot up and returned to the highest level we've had on record. Okay? Teen smoking is down dramatically. Now, these are all things, and I'll give you one other one. Teen pregnancy is down significantly. Part of that was the welfare reform package signed by President Clinton. Part of it is access to birth control in safe areas. There's a whole host of things that go into it, not just one. So these are things that if you focus on them, you can actually start to make progress that are manifestations of deep problems in our society. Safer streets is welcomed. Fewer teens having kids that can't really raise them. Kids raising kids, as you know. Seeing our life expectancy going up and the scourge of opiate deaths starting to come down to, I hope we eradicate it, but at least a manageable level and not stop our progress. These are things that should give you encouragement, going back to what I originally think. Okay, we're at a 50-year low in reading. What if we address that with the same kind of mindset that we have done public safety?
But I just hope that it comes from the home, right? Because like you said, you
Well,
can't.
I hope it comes from all of us, the home included.
Yeah, and these are things that I just was simply unaware of until probably the last few years. And when you get onto X, which maybe I got on.
I would not do that. That's
Okay,
bad for your health.
well, when you do, and I know you're on there too, you start to see these studies, and I go, a lot of times I don't believe them. I don't believe this data can't be true. And it's like, yeah, I take it and I dump it into Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini, and it is true a lot of times. And then it blows my mind.
Two things I would say, and then I do have to get going here. One, when I was going around the city as mayor, I used to say there's 3 doors that are essential for a child's success that they walk through. The front door of the home, the front door of the school, and the front door of the place of worship. And if one of those doors are closed, it will change your child's education and well-being. It's just that simple. The other piece of this is, and you guys both know this, I wrote a piece about parenting for the paper about a month ago.
That was great.
But I wrote that a lot of people ask about it. What do you and Amy do, or what was it your parents' trick? Because the hardest thing to do is parenting. It's the one we least talk about or are comfortable. We don't want to, quote unquote, be judgmental.
We're often judgmental, so.
No, but look, there's a history in our country going back to Patrick Moynihan, who got ran out of the Democratic Party for talking about family. The family structure has been around for 5,000 years. It is, if not longer. It is the most important social institution you have. And when it begins to falter, it won't be contained just to the family 4 walls that contain that family. It will impact society. And we need to do things financially, education, other types of things that support family life. And when it can't be done, quote unquote, in the typical traditional nuclear model, there are things like BAM, setting expectations, supporting kids with tutors, etc., sports, coaches that do give you the kind of support, or give that child, more importantly, a role model and the type of support to see a future for themselves, and not internalize a self-loathing and alienation that I saw all too frequently as mayor.
So Rahm, first of all,
one more question, then I got to run.
Yeah. So let me ask the question. One, I think you've been very early with the idea that the social media ban in Australia is a good idea, and I'm generally into kind of the idea of parents need to make the choice and be free. But I think in this age, you're spot on that. But here's my question. So you said a lot of things there. So crime is down.
Teen pregnancy, teen pregnancy down, opiates deaths down, and life expectancy up.
So on top of that, social facts, the economy is doing quite well. GDP, if you look at GDP now, it's projected now at 4.2% in Q1. I think there's a good chance it reaches 5% next year. Unemployment, if you look at something like Trueflation, is at 1% or going lower. We're signing trade deals with countries like India, obviously Japan. Dollars are coming into the US. You've been very critical about the administration and Trump, but does he get credit, or does the administration actually get credit for some of that?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know why anybody does this. It's very clear in the Constitution. It's not; these aren't trade deals. If they're trade deals, they have to go to the Senate for ratification. They're tariff deals. They have nothing to do with it. They're not trade deals. So I mean, like, I can't. I'm not a lawyer, and I have to every day. I feel like I have to teach somebody the Constitution. The Senate would, if it's a trade deal, the Senate would have to actually ratify it. So again, we're not doing red and blue, and we're not calling a tariff deal a trade deal. They're not the same. Second is the president of the United States announced all these great investments, trillions and trillions of dollars. Trust me, neither Japan or Korea are going to write a $500 billion check and hand it over to the president and say, spend it how you like. They got their own national country to worry about. A bunch of PR. That's all this is. It's a shiny bauble. Now, you looked at the data, you said that. For the American people, it's not that great. In fact, the average age of owning your first home has risen now to the highest level, 40. It used to be 26. Number one cause of bankruptcy in America, healthcare. College costs, every kid's basically on average, not every kid, but graduating with about $40,000 in debt. So they are struggling to hold on. Now you can go and tell me these macro numbers. The problem we have in our society today is you, I, and Ravin will benefit from those numbers. The only way this will work, both economically and politically, is if there are more people in the winner's circle rather than fewer. And you know what's wrong with this country right now, or a piece of it, is the whole system, especially the tax code, is written for wealth preservation, not wealth creation. And you have middle-class, hardworking families who did everything right, sent their kids to college, and their son or daughter now are living in the basement. They can't afford to get out. I say that I use this example all the time. When I got out of college, made $16,000. I went to Cornelia and Halstead, got an apartment for $325, utilities included. My son is in the Navy, makes 4 times what I made, and without the housing support from the Navy, could not afford to live in Washington, where he's based. This is insane.
Well, again, we've had massive inflation. Obviously, that's come down now. It doesn't change overnight.
But Al, to you two, I love you guys. You're both great, successful entrepreneurs. There's another part of America I'm going to take you on a field trip to. You need to see it.
I think I was born in that part of America, and
You
have
should have a
created a
feel
lot of
for the
businesses there.
It used to your family strive to get into the middle class. Today, every other family's struggling to stay in it.
Well,
It's a
Rahm,
big difference.
is that why you think Trump is like kind of going Bernie on credit cards and the capping? Do you think he sees Polymarket saying he's going to lose in 26, so he's throwing everything at the kitchen sink?
I think the president is not focused on the economy, and the American people know it. He's focused on his Nobel Prize, which he'll never get. He's focused on an immigration enforcement that he lost the American people. And he's interested in his personal family wealth and the corruption associated with it. And he's also interested in the retribution against people that he thinks hurt him. That's all. And the American people has sniffed it out. All right, I got to run. I love you guys.
Thank
I
you.
got to go. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much.
Ram, by the way, last night I was at dinner with Lowell Craft, who said hello, and the worlds are too small.
All right, man. Be good, guys.
All right. Thanks, Rahm.
See you, man. Talk to you.
Bye.
Now I got to figure out how to get out of this thing.
You have to stay with us permanently.
Yeah, we're taking
Life is too short for that, brother. Oh, here it is. Take care, man.
Bye, guys.
Rahm. Bye. So Rahm Emanuel,
Unfiltered.
Unchained.
Yeah.
How many times did he tell us that we've never been in the Oval Office?
Well, he didn't swear at us. We actually did do that one trip to the Oval Office, and actually almost did get kicked out.
Yeah, we were standing at the door, and I remember that security guard was there.
It might have been a few drinks before that White House tour.
So the two moments that stood out for me, one was, I thought in a very layup fashion, bring up voter ID. And just because I say the word Chuck Schumer, I have to hear about whatever it was that Trump did today without addressing the fact that literally you could win running away in the Democratic Party with voter ID. So I truly like, I just get the feeling looking at Rahm that he agrees with us, but there is something else that is preventing him from saying it. And I just don't know what it is because every single demographic is pro voter ID.
Well, I think this lane, unfortunately, is really tough if you're trying to win a primary in the Democratic Party these days. When we've talked about that meme where, I used to be center left and I didn't change, but the party went really far left. I mean, I think
Right.
in a way, I mean, I think that party polarizes everything, and it's all about where the energy is, and the energy is anti-Trump and embracing all of the far left policies. And I think the lane to be a centrist is tough. And I think the centrist idea would be 80% of the country supports voter ID. I'm pro voter ID.
Here is the voter ID number. I mean, it's 84%. Okay. And I don't think, and look at this,
So
85% black,
so
80,
for folks that are still listening, not watching, Ravin is projecting some slides. So these are polls coming out of CNN that he's got on the screen now.
white white people 85% want voter ID, Latino people 82%, black people 76%. And wow, apparently according to Chuck Schumer, we're going to have Jim Crow 2.0. Odd that 76% of black people want Jim Crow 2.0. And this is also where I think Rahm is with us. 71% of Democrats are for voter ID. And so it astounds me that we are in a situation where you get yelled at
Well,
by just simply talking about voter ID. And I think for Rahm, who wants this lane of wise centrists, like it's a fringe position at this point.
no, I
To
think
say voter ID is
the
ridiculous.
argument is insane. There are these videos of reporters going into, black neighborhoods and playing dumb and saying, "Well, you can't get an ID because you can't vote." And then the people are like, "What are you talking about? That's an insane position."
Right. They take out
They're
their
going,
license and they say, Are you kidding?" Like, so
no, it's a crazy. The only again, this is where what you hear from folks like Elon, the all in guys. The only reason not to have voter ID is to make potential fraud much easier to accomplish.
now the other thing that I'm going to share. This is a CNN poll, and there's the same guy, Harry Enton, their pollster. And here you can see what are the states that have had the biggest population growth this decade? Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, at the expense of these states, which are the blue states: California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, notwithstanding the amount of wealth that has gone out of the states. And the last slide I want to show is this. If things continue going on the way they are, and this is a map of America talking about projected electoral changes in 2030, Texas is going to gain 4. Florida is going to gain 4. You're going to have North Carolina and Georgia gaining, and you're going to have California losing 4, New York losing 2, and Illinois losing 2. This is a absolute, disaster for the left if they don't get in front of these issues. And I'm shocked that we get yelled at or we get a speech about, bipartisanship if you talk about voter ID.
Well, you've heard me talk about this before, and I tried to get Rahm there a little bit. And I think the biggest issue facing America that nobody's talking about, and it's not the political picture, because look, at the end of the day, the politics will move around, and the red states will pick up seats, and the blue states will lose some seats. It's what happens when these states are on the verge of bankruptcy, which I think is within a 10-year window of plus or minus 5 years. And if California continues to lose population and bloat their budgets and have fraud be rampant and spend $100 billion on a train to nowhere. If Illinois does the same thing, it drives population out. New York drives the same thing. At some point, all of these states and cities are going to be on the verge of bankruptcy, and Texas and Florida are going to be thriving. And at what point do you have this friction where it's really economic? Where are the residents of Florida and Texas and Tennessee and Alabama going to be willing to support the residents of California, New York, and Illinois? And I think that's a serious question that nobody is addressing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there is, as much as people want to kumbaya, and Rahm did that today with, let's not talk about red versus blue. But the second I bring up a third rail issue, like let's talk about economic incentives around, fathers in homes, we hear these these political pivots. And Rahm is obviously our friend, and he's obviously smart, and he's obviously gotten where he is because he's really good. But that's the kind of thing that at some point for a candidate who wants to be center of the fairway and not off in the rough, you kind of have to not tell the kind lie and tell the unkind truth, which is apolitically, are we doing things as a country which make us feel really good and make us feel like we are good people because we all want to be good people. But when you actually look at the uncomfortable data, we might actually be making the problem worse than better. And empathy is such a powerful emotion. And I would rather have my kid be empathetic more than anything. But at a certain point, empathy, I think, goes too far where it is, if I don't believe this, I'm a bad person. And I hope that, and it's not only true on the left, it's also true, on the right.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right.
You know,
So, you know,
the other thing I want to point out, I've had some friends call me kind of with their Rahm, finger at me in the last couple of weeks saying, you know what, you used to be kind of a middle of the road guy, and now I feel like you're only like pro Trump and you're only talking one side of the thing. And I said that is like 100% not true. Today, I felt like I was kind of saying, look, when it comes to ICE, no one wants masked men running across America. And of course, you would want body cams. But I feel like things have gotten so polarized today that a lot of my friends who are left of center or far left, anytime Trump does something stupid, of which there are many times, okay? Those Truth Social posts, do I like those? I think they're ridiculous. Okay, I think it's absolutely insane. The Nobel Prize stuff is insane. The plaques, they're insane. Yes, for your edification, that is what I believe. But here's the problem. I think a lot of people like to send me those things with this gotcha moment of, don't you regret not voting for Kamala Harris? It's like, no, I don't regret the fact that I didn't vote for Kamala Harris because, to Rahm's point, thank God the border's closed. And
well,
that
I
would
think
be the biggest issue.
well, I think Clinton, who Rahm worked for, famously said, "It's the economy, stupid." And I quoted those numbers, and I think Rahm was a bit dismissive, but those are the numbers. We're going into an economy that might be north of 5% real growth, coming from an economy that probably was zero or negative if you really counted the inflation correctly. And inflation is dropping fast. Trueflation, which measures inflation basically where CPI will be in 9 or 12 months, is 1% or lower. And we have real growth that's projected to be north of 4. So whatever it's happening, it's working. And at a certain point, you have to kind of say, okay, if the economy is doing well, we have money to invest, and we have savings. We can invest in our military, we can invest in our people, and we can drive more growth. I think there's a way that you have a centrist candidate eventually emerge, but I don't know how it happens. So,
And to be honest, if there was a centrist Democrat, without question, I want it to be Rahm Emanuel. I mean, the guy is filled with wisdom. I've seen him speak so many times, and when he's off the cuff, he's the best because he comes up with all these stories that are A, very relevant, B, rooted in experience, and because he has been an executive as well as an elected official. But I just feel for him because the forces against him, on the Mandami AOC Warren side of the aisle, you can kind of see it in his face where he says, I talk about education and accountability, and no one took the bait, and I'm all alone on for the guy. And part of me really wants to say, Rahm, I heard you on Barry Weiss. You sounded like a Republican for the first
well,
minutes.
well, that's the joke I make, and Fetterman, who we'd love to have on the podcast at a certain point, some of the positions, and all he's just saying common sense stuff. Is ICE agents generally are good people who are out not to kill random Americans, probably just trying to do their jobs and be safe. We should probably respect that and basic stuff. And at a certain point, he doesn't sound like a Democrat. And I don't know how that stuff all plays out. It was amazing to have Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, former congressman, former chief of staff to President Obama,
But
join us here.
more importantly, current presidential candidate. So Rahm, run. Uncle Sam, we need you. We need a voice of reason. And
current potential presidential candidate.
Yeah.
So if you're still listening, please like our videos, subscribe, share them. Get us to continue to drive more amazing folks like Rahm to come join us for conversations.
You heard it here from social media influencer Al Goldstein, going to be the first part of his Twitter bio, not entrepreneur, unicorn. No. Instagram influencer. So if you want Al to wear any of your products. If you've got a tank top with,
Oh,
some sort of a logo, talk
what's
to CAA
what,
where he's now represented. So
what's the line from Happy Gilmore? If I saw myself in clothes like those, I want to kick my own ass.
this has been an amazing Lucky 13 number episode of Forged in America. So we will see you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you all.